Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Happy Monday to you. Happy start to your work week, your play week. You're here and you're now, as we like to say here. It's 10 at 10, and this is where I come at you for approximately 10 minutes, though it's never quite 10 minutes. At approximately 10 a.m. Eastern, though it's never quite exactly 10 a.m. Eastern. It's 7 a.m. in California. It's 8 a.m. in the Rocky Mountains. It's 10 p.m. in Thailand, where we just were last month. The beautiful time is the mid-afternoon in Europe. And when you're entering, you can share where you are, where you're from, what time it is, and feel free to contribute and ask questions, comments, share jokes, riddles, koans, whatever is inspired to move through you today. So we got some snow in Pennsylvania right now in the United States of America, and we got some snow last. I wonder if I can show this to you quickly. See if this works. Yeah, there it is. Look at that. Beautiful, right? It was a really beautiful snow. It was like this kind of, it's still laying away, it lays on the trees, and it's just this white crystalline energy. Welcome, Russell. Good to see you here. It's just really beautiful. And there's something about embracing what is, right? Embracing the temperature as it is, embracing the sky, the color of the sky, the conditions, embracing the conditions as they are that allow us to move and flow with life in another way, right? What we sometimes call it the flow state, as opposed to being in resistance to the moment, which doesn't make a lot of sense, even though as human beings, we so often are in that state anyway. We so often expend a lot of energy resisting the moment, resisting what is. It shouldn't be this way. This is not the way it should be. It should be a different way, right? But yet this is the way it is, right? So the way to become, the gateway to becoming one with the Creator, to becoming one with creation, and then coming into the deepest empowered essence of who you truly are, is actually to accept the moment 100% as it is, to accept the moment 100% as it is, which is a paradox, right? Because there's a sense of like, well, I'm a powerful person, I can change this, I can control this, I can make it happen what it wants to be. And you actually can respond and add your note to the song, be a part of the orchestration of the movement of life in a very powerful, cohesive, liberated, embodied way, when you can be with what is, when you can have a real depth, pure depth of being with what is. And on a physical level, a really simple, powerful way to do that is often just to take a deep breath. Just okay, I'm here. We're here. Where are we? What's happening? You know, you tune into the moment. You tune into the sensory perceptions of the moment. You tune into what you're seeing, what you're smelling, what you're hearing, what you're feeling, right? And this allows you to access the power of now, as Eckhart Tolle calls it, right? The power of this moment, the power of this moment. And when you can access the power of this moment, when you can dip into the river of now, when you can dip your foot into the river of now, what you notice is there's a poetry to life. There's a synchronicity, right? There's a poetry, there's a music to life. There's a movement to life. Life is poetry. And when you accept this moment, embrace this moment, and stop resisting it. When you're resisting, there's a sense of noise and chaos and disharmony, right? But when you can really embrace what is as it is, there's an inherent poetry that's beyond what you think it should be or shouldn't be. There's an inherent music that's beyond what you think it should be or shouldn't be, right? So you start to discover and realize thinking as a secondary tool, not the primary tool. The primary tool being presence. The primary tool being presence, and this is where the most beautiful poetry is written. This is where the most beautiful music is written, right? This is where the synchronicities... The thing about synchronicities is it's all synchronicities, right? So we get in the point where we're like, oh, I just had a synchronicity. What that really means is you just stepped into the flow state, right? So you notice the synchronicity that aligned with your own path, your own story that you identify with. But synchronicity is all there really is, right? So we just know synchronicities when we're in our own flow state, when we're connected, when we're aligned inside. And yet, when we can step back from the level of resistance, from the attachment to the ego and the way it should be or shouldn't be, then who's to say what's a flow or what's not a flow? Who's to say what's synchronized or what's not synchronized? The whole universe is synchronized when you step back from this egoic sense of knowing how it should be or shouldn't be. So the incredible thing about this process of spiritual awakening or self-realization or self-actualization is that it's actually a process of unknowing. It's a process of unknowing. And that's what's so amazing about it, is that you go into it thinking you want to accumulate more information, more knowledge, more, it's like, it's the same way it works on the material level of the ego wanting to accumulate, is the same way it works when you start on the spiritual path, except now it's on a mental, psychological idea, belief level, accumulate. So the thing that's still stuck in all this accumulation of knowledge and beliefs and ideology, the thing that's still stuck is the illusionary sense of you, the illusionary sense of a separate self, the illusion. Welcome, Akshaya. Great to see you here. The illusionary sense of attachment and identification to the story of you. I'm going to get in a lot more into story the rest of this week, because story is such a fascinating, super fascinating area. It's really the only area that's fascinating. Things that are real aren't really that interesting because they're just real, right? But there's actually very, 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 very few things. In fact, there's only one thing that's real, which isn't actually even a thing. And then everything else, amazingly enough, incredibly enough, miraculously, magically enough, is a story. Who's writing the story, right? Who's creating the story? Is the story poetry? Is the story music? Or is the story disharmony and chaos and disempowered, a disempowered sense of not knowing who you are and trying to, right? So if you come from the deepest sense of source and connection, if you're one with creation, then there is a poetry and a music that flows through you. Now, it flows through you as the channel, right? So you are not the one who's necessarily doing it, right? Or making it happen or pushing it or forcing it into being. You are the one the energy is flowing through. You are the one who is the open gateway for this universal creative intelligence, source, God, to move through you in the moment. And the paradoxical thing is the greatest power inside us, the deepest sense of empowerment inside us, opens up when we can be in a relationship of accepting being with this moment as it is. because there's nothing outside of us, there's nothing separate from us that created this moment, right? That's the realization, what we call non-dual realization, the realization of non-duality. There's nothing separate from me. And when I realize there's nothing separate from me, that's where this sense of inner peace, this sense of empowerment, this sense of love, this sense of freedom, and this sense of music and this sense of poetry flows through and is available to move through me. And I'm able to then realize the story as a story, and I'm able to rewrite the story, to author the story myself. So we'll get more into that the rest of the week of story creation, of what I'm now calling story hacking, right? The things that you think are true, that are limiting, unconscious limiting beliefs for you, are actually not true, and you actually become conscious and aware that they're only stories. And realizing that they're stories, then there's the potential to transcend the story, and if you want to change the story, right? Change the story of your future, change the story of your past. All starts from the awakening of deepening into realizing who you really are and deepening into the space of this moment right now. Check the links to delve in deeper. I was thinking I'd love to have like a studio. I can have like a studio and like have like an awesome backdrop and so forth. So if anyone wants to donate, there's a donation button to donate a studio for me, or you can also just message any creative ideas you have or things that subject matter, questions. This is all about communication. This is all about two-way communication and dialogue and support and co-creation. So if you want a personal session, delving deeper, there's a link. There's a link to donate. There's a link to connect with our online community. Have a beautiful rest of your day. May you notice the magic, the synchronicity, the miracles in this moment. May you notice the poetry and the music that's inherent in life. And may you notice that you are a part of that music and that poetry. And may you dance. May you dance.